Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Mr. Darran Bruce. He is executive producer for the DJ session. So we're going to learn what that is, what he does. And but first off, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, Kyle, thanks for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
I'm Darran Bruce, the executive producer of the DJ Sessions. We feature international and national DJs, celebrity DJs, local DJs on our platform. We've been doing it for about 13 years, and we're just looking to now expand our brand even further and grow. I have a very extensive background that I've been doing this for about 30 years professionally. Before that, when I was 6 years old and picked up a camera, I was kind of doing it in an amateur fashion. But right out of high school, I got involved with a public access television show in 1992, hip hop television show of all things, and kind of just got the bug and became over time an overglorified production assistant. But in 2000, we worked on a show, late night talk show here in the Seattle area where we're based out of. And I started reading books and started educating myself on the film and television business. And because I kind of to quickly become an associate producer, I kind of like, I'm production assistant, associate producer, and started, wanting to talk the talk and be the lingo and be in the business. And Seattle isn't necessarily a town like LA, where you kick a can and 85 artists pop out, and kick another can and 5,000 writers pop out, and then you kick another can and 10,000 producers pop out. Because a lot of people ask, as an executive producer, what is your job? What do you do? What does that entail? Well, I found out what producers do on the back end. There's a lot of different producers. So when you see all those credits in a movie, those are all separate jobs that people are doing different things. But my goal was to become an executive producer, to kind of be in charge of the show, and kind of making sure that the purse strings are pulled from the right places and the financing is done and everyone's in order. But, it took a little bit of time, and here we are now. And I have broadcast series under my belt that I produced at Fox and NBC, podcast series that have been recognized by Apple. Some awesome stories there. And then also going into live streaming, where we've been featured by Ustream, Livestream, and in 2018 got picked up by Twitch to be a featured partner on Twitch.
Oh,
and that's,
wow.
It's our kind of our primary outlet now. Kind of left broadcast behind in favor of the newer mediums. And
got that.
yes.
Now, I'm assuming you put a lot of money and time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into doing this. Kind of tell us your build up to actually getting this off the ground.
I'd say a lot of blood, sweat, tears, time. There has not always been money behind any of this. You could say what I do and what I've done over the years has supported this. It was in 2019 when I took a direction that said, I'd been doing the DJ sessions kind of on and off for years in the past, when we were putting our broadcast television shows together and looking for millions of dollars in those studios to pick us up and syndicate us. At one point we had 8 separate television shows approved to air on 12 network stations on the West Coast in 2005, 2006, 2007, even in 2009, our last run on broadcast TV here in the Western Washington, we actually shifted the whole platform over and saying, we're just going to podcast and we're just going to live stream. Problem is how do you monetize podcasts, and figure that out to where if your audience is too small, the big people don't look at you. If your audience is too big, where's that audience coming from? And can you get local sponsorship dollars when your viewership's over in India? Makes no sense. And, so it's a very interesting demographic. Plus there's no Nielsen ratings. So the numbers are kind of arbitrary. You can kind of make up whatever you want And how does anyone prove it? You now have social tracking. You can track and say, well, where's their socials at? Do they align with certain numbers? And all that being said, money wasn't really a big factor, but I'd always talked about not being afraid of going after those millions of dollars of what it takes to actually create a show. I was just talking with somebody last night about the goal not being money, but the goal, if you want to run a successful company or, business, it is about money, bottom line dollar. I have to pay employees. I have to retain employees. I have to pay for insurance, pay for licensing. There are costs associated with doing business. And, figuring out ways to do that on a shoestring budget or no budget at all, I think have really led me to get creative to where I now know what to do when I got the money. Because I would have been just throwing a lot of money on a lot of things and going, oh, I learned the lesson. I learned the lesson for 100,000. I learned the lesson for 10,000. I learned the lesson for 1,000. And now I can come in and go, what could I do with $250,000? What could I do with 1.5 million? How would I apply those dollars and where would they go? And over all those years, looking back, going, okay, I know that I don't need to go get 8K red cameras, and have 10 of them. There's no reason for that. We're not shooting a Steven Spielberg or George Lucas movie here. It's just a podcast series. It's an interview. We can get away with a probably standard $1,000 4K camera, and our audience, how much they're digesting and the amount of content we're pushing out. Does anyone, unless you're shooting Avatar, does it really matter that your show's in 4K? No, it doesn't. And we're doing an interview right now, and I'm on the 720p MacBook Pro from last year's laptop. Okay. Looks great. I got a green screen behind me. I got a great microphone from our sponsors, Mackie. So my audio sounds good. My $50 light that sits right in front of me, my LED, and we're doing a podcast interview, and people don't sit there and always just look at your content either like this the whole time and watch everything oh my gosh, look at his microphone, the back there. They listen to these things. They put them on. If they want to sit there and watch it like a TV show, that's great. But 9 times out of 10, we're not going for the action sequences. And so having all that high equipment, that's one of the things I just quoted in the interview I was in, or just said in the interview I was in, is that if you want to start getting into this business, don't go out there and drop $10,000, $5,000 on gear. You can start with your phone nowadays. You can start with your laptop camera, but do go spend $50 on a light. Go definitely get a good, decent Bluetooth wireless mic, something you can clip on here and get some good audio. So and maybe get some dampening pad for your room, or figure out a way to be in an enclosed section so your noise isn't all reverbing off of everything. And maybe a green screen for $80 that you can drop behind you, and start your show production there. Because a lot of podcasters start with low quality, or beginner quality, I should say. Beginner quality. I was there. I've been there. Yeah. I know what it's like, but beginner quality stuff. And then they're compared to all these other shows, and they might have good content, but their lighting might be off, their audio might be off. It's hard to listen to when our standards are set by broadcast television, by the film and television industry, that there's a level of standards, and have at least somewhat close to the standards. So money has never been there in the sense of things. And that was supposed to change in 2020. We had some big sponsors on board, really awesome sponsors on board, like low 6-figure sponsors coming on board, which was right aligned with what we were going to do. And then all field marketing got killed. And it was like, oh, great, cool. Back to square one. What do we keep doing? We keep doing the show for free. We don't let it stop us, because we were already doing that. It wasn't really a hang up, but, it gave us some time to revamp some things. When we saw everyone jump online and start doing podcasting and start doing live streams, we got to actually kick back. And I just took a step back and said, y'all go do that. I'm going to focus on some stuff on the back end that's much needed work to really make this launch. And in about a year, when I see the burnout coming, when I see the disenfranchisation coming, that you aren't getting the money or getting the audience, and you kept knocking on my door saying, how do we get this? How do we get this? And I realized I'm giving away a lot of this information for free, and maybe I shouldn't be giving away the information for free anymore, or give it to those who are going to appreciate it. Because a lot of what I've learned, as I found out for free, it was going to a bookstore, reading a book, reading an online article, and it's out there on how to do this and become successful at it. But the first goal is just doing it, getting out there and do it. Stop talking about it and do it.
Yeah, no kidding. I've talked to several people that want to get into doing this kind of stuff, and they're like, oh, I don't have the money to buy the equipment. And I was, look, I had my laptop camera and the microphone that is already built into the computer when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have no special backgrounds or background music or anything like that. You just start doing it, as if you enjoy it and everything's going good, then maybe add a camera and then add your microphone and all that. I mean, my background's fake. It's a room divider, basically.
It's the content of the show. Like I said, nobody's going to watch this show and go, wow, look, he had the DJ Sessions logo back there. Wow, that's so neat. Wow. Oh, you had a screen. Where'd you get that? I mean, it might be, hey, that was a great idea. I never thought about using a screen divider for the backdrop. Now it doesn't have to look like my living room. Oh, wow. I mean, even just hanging a sheet up behind you,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. I've seen that. And so, the tips and tricks of just elevating, but it's the podcast, it's the content of the podcast that's key.
That's
and
right.
finding out the niche of what you want to go explore. I'm going to quote this right now. I'm going to pull this up. I just typed this off an interview. I'm going to pull this up for you. Let's see if I can get this over here for you. I like this quote because I was just, like I said, just writing this out, and about how, starting on shows, because they asked me, Google Docs for some reason is taking time to load today. I don't know what's going on. They got a bug, they got hacked or something like that. It was, when you pull up a document that's supposed to be in the cloud and only half of it loads, you're kind of like, did the computer dog eat my homework or what? It's kind of a little scary, here was, the best advice I can give somebody, quote, is looking to start up a podcast or live stream series is this: do your research. What I mean by do your research is knowing the topic that you want to talk about, educating yourself on it, and the top people in that industry or subject that you're going to be focusing on. It will make for a better show overall. And I mean, if you're just blindly trying to shoot out there and you don't have questions, you're not researching things, you're not creating at least somewhat of a question list, or your content is just so broad. Like, I want to talk to people about food. Well, okay. Are you going to talk about Cajun food? Are you going to talk about Asian food? You're going to talk about Korean food? What kind of food are you going to talk? And then find those people, dial it down, and then use those keywords. There was a podcast series I saw recently and said, take and make the top 3 keywords for your podcast, and then go search for those keywords and see how many other people are doing that same kind of podcast. If there isn't anyone doing it, it's either nobody's doing it or you might have found a niche. But if all of a sudden you see 500 people are doing it, you're like, maybe I should make my podcast the same as those 500 people. Maybe I should adjust it a little bit. So when we started the DJ sessions, we started it in a time, the live streaming portion of, well, it was a live streaming show since its inception, but when we started it, there were DJs that were streaming online, but it still was, you had to have the bandwidth to do it from home. And a lot of people didn't have 2 megabit upload speeds, which really meant 0.75 megabit upload speeds. And then you needed a computer, and then cameras back then weren't the greatest. So some decent lighting, a knowledge of, how to use the technology, which there were DJs that were streaming, but I didn't see many DJ shows. If the DJs were streaming, it was the DJ doing their own streaming show. They might invite a friend or 2 over, but that was the I call it the me show. Mm-hmm. It's the show that's all about me, and it's nobody else and anyone else. I'm not going to show anyone else. It's all about me to make me famous, and I'm not helping anyone else. And me not being a DJ, but a lot of my friends were, I was the video producer. I was the guy that knew the video gear, the video stuff. I've been playing with that since I was 6 years old. So I said, what if I take care of all the video production side of things and the streaming side of things, but my friends come over and all they do is play the music. And that's all they got to worry about. I'll take care of the camera switching, the angles, the online socials, the chat rooms, and all that stuff. You just come and play music and have fun doing that, and drink some beers and party and all that fun stuff too. And that made it not the Darran show or the Darran DJ show. It made it a show about the DJs in the market. And I would get different DJs from different crews to come by and play. And then one day I had invited Dave Dresden, who's a huge DJ in the DJ community, the DJ world. He invited him to come on the show for an interview and to play on the show. And he said yes. And I had him. This is a few weeks in, like about a month and a half in after we had started the show up. And when I saw Dave Dresden playing in my bedroom, this is like kind of getting like, I mean, you were talking a little bit about rock and you mentioned Quiet Riot. I'm sure you know like Lars Ulrich, you know, from
Metallica.
It's kind of like getting kind of a Metallica in the sense of electronic music over to your house and playing your bedroom, playing a set in your bedroom. You're like, this guy's a worldwide phenomenon. He makes tracks for Madonna and big world sensation, Gabriel Dresden. Huge, very well known. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, I'm on to something, you know, and that's when the bug hit. And I started focusing on spending a little bit of my own money by getting a studio, you know, building out the studio and putting that blood, sweat, and tears into that. And you can go back and watch those episodes to this day on our site. You can go all the way back to 2009. Heck, you could probably even go back to when I first started live streaming, because I pulled the whole library when I was testing the system out. When I used to do my Dialing for Dollars series or cooking hot dog stuff. Yeah, I started as one of those kind of sensations because I had to test out the system before I was going to get all these people on board and doing it. But yeah, it's just getting out there and doing it with what you have and making a show happen. But know your topic, know what you're going to talk about, know your audience base, and know where to market it. You know, it's I'm not going to put a DJ show in a cooking forum. You know, just unless we're doing our Beats and Eats episodes, then I would, like, because then we're incorporating chefs and DJs in the show. Right. I get wild and crazy concepts for shows all the time. I think the DJ sessions right now under it, we have five different offshoots under the umbrella of the DJ sessions. But I think I have like 6 or 7 more concept ideas that we can mix in with DJs doing different things.
So I do a paranormal show.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a guy on and he started going off on how he's traveled through time and all this other stuff. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my Lord, this is not what I expected. You ever gotten anybody that just kind of gone off script on your show?
No, you know, not really. What happens is when that happens, like I found over time, I'll have a planned set list of questions. And I'm going to go question 1, question 2, question 3. Then all of a sudden I might be on question 3 and they start answering something that's going to be question number 7. And then, yeah, I have to bring it back. But I've only had 2 DJs I've ever had to pull off of a live set. And one of them was just kind of going, I don't know what they were doing. I didn't know if it was part of his set, if it was part of his show, as part of his shtick, you know, part of his stage presence. But it really wasn't setting the tone of the event that we were at and the feel and mood. So I was like, okay, dude, gotta cut you off. And then there was another DJ I found out he was literally just pressing the play button and playing other people's mixes. So he's basically cheating and then passing it off. And so one of my DJs was watching him. He's like, dude, he's not playing a mix. He just pressed play. He put the stick in and pressed play and let it go. I went, well, I had to go back and go, oh, you're off the show. Most people don't pull moves like that. You know, and if they do, they're kind of gone. I don't know, but I would be interested to hear your time travel guy. I'd be all about that. I'd like, you know, obviously the whole thing, I know, you know, it's out there now with Multiverse of Madness, right. Everything all at once. You know, I could talk to you about my dream, what I call my dream theories, which, you know, alternate dimensions and universes. And, and all that fun stuff. I could go down that pathway for forever and talk about that stuff. You want to go off topic, So I would be interested in something like that. But, if you can't, if as a host of a show, it's kind of your job to wrangle me back in.
Right.
And so sometimes when podcasters are just letting me talk too much and I'm just going on and on, I'm like,
I'm enjoying the conversation.
And then I realize maybe I should stop so they can ask me another question. But yeah, I've had some people that can just talk and I'm like,
I can't stand it when I get those that won't talk. You ask them a question and they're like, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, it quite frequently happens. I get worried sometimes when I'm speaking with people that are not fluent in English, and they will give short, direct answers because their vocabulary isn't long.
That's
so I
understandable.
typically I'll have anywhere from 12 to 15 questions per guest. But when I'm working with somebody who might not be speaking very good English, I'll put 20 or 22 questions in just in case, But most of the people, it's like I had somebody recently, my first time I've ever had a guest that wants to be on the show, and they're from Japan and they don't speak a word of English. So we're going to bring a translator in on the third angle, and the translator will translate for them, and then they'll answer and translate back for the interview. I've never done that before. I'm totally excited for this. Yeah, super duper excited for this. So
sometimes I like a challenge, though.
Yeah,
it gets boring doing the same thing over and over and over again.
And that was one of the largest things when I was in broadcast television. You set up your production, you record, you come home, you post that production, then you put it online. And that kind of did lose a little bit of flavor for me because it kind of became rinse, wash, repeat. Mm-hmm. With live, you're always on your toes. Now, even though this has become a rinse, wash, repeat, I've got the cycle down, it's in my head, I'm still on my toes and the show must happen. So if that falls over, hey, we're still running with it and we'll go on with the show. And don't worry about it. If your kid jumps in the room while we're doing the interview, your dog jumps on your lap, we're going with it. And like right now, there's a big protest going on outside of my house.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I live on the corner of 3rd and Crime in downtown Seattle, better known as 3rd and Pine, or when the protests happened before they went up to CHOP and moved up to Capitol Hill, everything was going on right in the middle of my neighborhood. Jeez. So yeah, probably like 20, 30, 40,000 some odd people, whatever, just down here. But during summertime, the protests start picking back up and go by. Better. Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear them right now.
I thought I heard something in the background sounding like chanting going on. And when I first started doing this, and I strictly did paranormal stuff, and my wife got me a book. This is how you do it, and write out all these questions. So I did that, but when I did it, I sounded like a robot, and it got really monotonous. And then my guest, like you said, you had someone answer your question 7 when you're at question 3. Sometimes I didn't always pick up on the answers because I was waiting for that pause to ask the next question. And then one night I was doing a live and I just said, you know what, I'm winging it tonight, and turned into a great conversation. I've never written down a question again. Now, what I'll do is I'll go read something about the person so I know a few topics that we could talk about. But for the most part, I just like to get in there and find out what they're all about, and what's your interest outside of what you're known for, or whatnot. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Now, not everybody can do that. Some people need to write down the questions ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. I look at it as more as a guideline.
Yeah.
Like guidelines as opposed to stick to. And if it's not going well, go back to this. I do have some questions that they're in my list, but there's some that I haven't asked yet. I want to build up more credibility before I start asking these questions. Right, the last thing I'd ever want to do is have one artist go back to their PR agent that we work with and say, I don't ever want to do an interview with them again. And then the PR agent says, you don't get access to our roster ever again. And some of these people I'm working with are very high up, have very high profile celebrity people. So always mind your P's and Q's, always be polite. You know, I usually ask if they don't want to answer anything or don't want to talk about anything, and they'll let me know. They're like, nope, I'm pretty much open game. I'm okay. If you said you're open game, then it's open game. You know, but I stay away from the controversial stuff. And like I said, I think I was telling you a little bit before show that I'm not an Oprah Winfrey, Barbara Walters, Dan Rather trying to get you cry on camera. You know, it's good times, fun times, positive times here. And what I want to know what they're positively doing and impacting for the world. And the one thing I do love is when I ask a question though, and they go, wow, I've never been asked that before. Wow, that's a really hard one. I don't know. What do I say? And I'm like, yes, like the stump, when I stump them and they got to really sit back and think about it. That's my Barbara Walters. That's my Oprah Winfrey moment when I get that. I'm getting something that nobody else has asked them. Yes. All right, cool.
Well, I love it when they stroke my ego right after it's over and they're like, man, nobody's asked me that kind of stuff. And I've never been on a show like this. Yeah, I know, because I'm, kind of special.
It was, it wasn't the first time. I'm trying, there's 2 times I remember that really happening to me. One time was I was interviewing the guy who played Neville Longbottom in Harry Potter. I had an opportunity to go out, and it was before the DJ sessions had started. I was just right in the beginning. So I was still coming out of broadcast television, doing ITV live before it became the DJ sessions. I went out to do this piece with them, and he was just like, wow, that was just such a great interview. Thank you. And I was like, kind of just off the cuff, made it up right off the go. And then there was, gosh, what was that? I can't remember the other person that said, that was a damn good interview. I was like, thank you, but it takes time. You get this under your belt. One of the things my first producers that I ever worked under, he was always trying to push me to be in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Get in front of the camera, get in front of the camera. Come on, your energy, get in front of the camera. I'm like, and I was like, no. It wasn't because I was shy, but he asked me about 6 months in, he says, why don't you want to get in front of the camera? I said, because everyone that gets in front of your camera, they're gone in 6 months to a year. The in front of camera talent was just gone because the next shiny object would happen or they'd move on to another project. So there wasn't any stability that I saw in front of the camera. What I did see stability in was him producing that show, was him holding that camera, was him going back and editing the shows, was us distributing the shows every week. I like that because the show is going on. It's on, the show's on, the show's on. And I go, I want to learn that. I want to be able to do that and be able to produce shows. One of the funniest things is I'm not really supposed to be the face man of the show. I'm not supposed to be the host or the talent on the show. But as the saying goes in the industry, the show must go on. And I wasn't just going to sit there and be like, I'm afraid to jump in front of the camera, so I'm going to just wait until I find somebody to be in front or try to get people to be in front of the camera. And then you build it all up, and then they go find a shiny new object. They get a new job. I usually call it the quadfecta. It's shiny new object, boyfriend, job, or money. It's one of those 4 things that kind of pulls them, or the opportunity of something, which would be shiny new object, kind of pulls your way in the entertainment industry. And even if I had money to pay people, I could still, that talent could be outbid by other bigger projects. And then they're like, hey, Darren, I got to take this project. I'm being signed on board for $50,000 to do this over the next 4 months. And you're paying me $250 a week to do an episode. I can't commit to this anymore. Now I got to go through the whole casting process all over again, put this all together. So, the ups and downs of the back end stuff that people aren't aware of in this industry is interesting, to say the least. But
there is a lot that goes on. People think you just get in front of a camera and you just talk. But,
no.
I mean, good Lord, there's, finding the guests. And then there's once you got it recorded, doing the editing and doing the uploading, doing the promotion, the whole 9 yards. It gets, at first it was okay because I was small time, no big deal. But as it started to grow and I needed to get more content, and now I'm able to afford to pay someone to help me get talent on the show. And I still do all my own editing, but I have somebody that helps me to promote it a little bit better. And there's a lot that goes on, but my biggest advice is find something that you really, really love. Do it because you love doing it. Don't go into this like it's a business. You go in it saying, I just want to do this because I like it. Before you know it, then the money starts coming in. Then you worry about the business end of it.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's been a passion, but always in the back end, we knew, coming from my broadcast days of what it would take. I mean, just to air our shows, and luckily we found out a way that we didn't have to do this, but to put your shows on broadcast television, the FCC requires that they have to be closed captioned. It costs 6 to 7 times the amount what it costs to air our show to close caption our shows.
I believe it.
So if our shows were $500 a week, it's $3,000 to $3,500 just to close caption that one episode.
Jeez.
That only lives and goes on broadcast television once, unless you're syndicated, and it might live again, but it goes on there once until you get syndicated. There's $4,000 right there that's just boop on one episode.
It's crazy.
Then you got to look at production costs. You know, it depends on the type of show it is. You got cameramen, you got editors, you got graphic designers, you got hosts, you got audio engineers, you know, all that fun stuff that goes on top of that. And if you wanted to pay them a decent rate, you could be looking at, lowball for a lowball production show, you could be looking at $20,000. You're producing 13 of these things. That's $260,000 a quarter, or $1 million a year for a show that airs for a 30-minute, actually not even a 30-minute episode, a 22.5-minute episode, because you got 8 minutes of commercials that you could put in there. I mean, you could play with it if you want, but then you got to sell that show, but it only airs locally. So how do you raise $1 million in local money on a show that might only have 20,000 people maximum watching it? Because you can't get the mark, even though you could say, oh, there's 1.7 million households or 3 million households in the demographic area. But the Super Bowl only gets 30% of those households. And your show might get a percentage of that. You can't, no matter what marketing you do, no matter how much you do out there, which then you got to throw in your marketing costs too, by the way. Forgot about that one, to market it. So, you know, how do you get this big money to come in and sponsor a show when there's limited viewership on it? And that's why we abandoned the broadcast television. It's just too expensive for broadcast TV to do what it does, for an independent producer. And I went and pitched my shows to Fox at one point. They loved the concept. And, but then I realized I just pitched my entire variety television show series to a major network, like the vice president of the West Coast and his boss. And they wanted to send me over to the head of development in Burbank. And I was like, I don't have a lawyer. I don't have an agent. I don't have a contract. And I'm going to go here on a free pitch meeting saying, do this concept of a show that's like evening magazine for every local market. I just gave them a multi-million-dollar idea, and they're not going to hire me to come and do it. They're like, thank you for the idea. And I was like,
I had a buddy of mine that did basically the same thing. He's done a few reality shows, and then he came up with an idea for a reality show, and they were getting everything set up, and all of a sudden they're like, no, we're not going to do it. About a year or so later, it's on TV and somebody else is doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's tough is if I used to say this a long time ago, that in the broadcast television world, and this goes to the internet world as well, but in my market, let's say there's 1 million people, and let's break it down and go, take 10% of those people at any given time, 10% of those people, 100,000 of those people will have an idea for a television show. Just an idea. I think it'd be cool if there was a show like this. Okay. Take that notch down another 10%. So now you're at 1% of the market, or 10,000 people. And some of them might say, no, I keep talking about this idea. And they might get some encouragement to follow up with the process. And they might read a book. They might go to a class. They might read something online. They might start the development process of that. Take another percent of that. You go down to 1,000 people. And out of those 1,000 people, some of them might actually go take a class on how to do video editing, or actually get some books on how to produce a show, and start maybe putting a crew together and work the industry and the trade and start pitching people on their show to build a crew. Take another percent of that, 100 people actually might get a working pilot made, something they can actually shop, knock on doors, and kind of say, this is what we're working on, or we're building this up and it's going to be great. Take another percent of that, down to 10 people. And they might actually get something that's pitchable, like to the part where they can go get money for it. Out of all that over those years, there was one person in this market that was doing that. One person, that was me. Wow. I was actually putting the shows and airing them, and then getting them deals and approved, and expanding the series to more shows, different genres of the series on more networks across the entire West Coast. No financing, no daddy warbucks, did not grow up in Beverly Hills, no family ties to any major stars in the industry that were helping guide this. And when I sat down with the guy at Fox, when I pitched him this idea, this is 2005-ish, he said, how did you do all this? My first words were, I picked up the phone. Like, how else would anyone else do this? I mean, I made calls, I networked, I talked, and I listened to what was needed to make it happen, and then went back and said, okay, this is what they need. We got to make this. Let's make this, and made it happen. So, but at that time, like I said, the internet was coming into play. YouTube was coming into play. Podcasting was coming into play. The video iPod had come into play. And we kind of were like, we're raising all this money, and we really don't have the backing of the studios. And if we did go to the studios, I don't want to say the industry's shady or bad or negative in any way, but there's a good chance in hell they could just take our show, just take and say, hey, because you can't really patent or trademark or copyright a variety show. A variety show that shows short films. There's no script behind that. I mean, a reality show that shows nightclubs, a reality show that goes to restaurants, a reality show that goes to arts or fashion or live music. You can't patent that idea, Right. So, we just looked at it and said, well, where can we take these shows and put them on? We could put them into podcasting, and we host them on a GoDaddy server. And then we had some success with the Apple store, because when I was working for Apple, I made some phone calls. Again, I picked up that phone, made some calls, and they were like, yep, check it out. It's Tuesday. Can't tell you what's happening, but look at the iTunes store on Thursday. I said, okay. And our first podcast, video podcast, was featured in the iTunes store in the video podcast section at position number 48 out of 50.
Wow.
And this is right when the video iPod had just come out as well. So you can imagine people are like, where do I get content? They're going into iTunes. They're looking at those top 50 podcasts going, download. And we actually ended up going up to position 23 in that section. For some reason, we were also listed in the comedy section of the iTunes podcast section as well. I couldn't figure out why that happened, because comedy wasn't even one of our tags, but all right, cool. I mean, there we go there too. So that was kind of a huge, we saw our downloads go from 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 to 50,000 to 100,000 to 300,000 downloads a week.
Wow.
And we're sitting here going, now how do we monetize this? Where do we get money for this? And it was so basic. There was no monetization of a podcast. Maybe if somebody was working it and they could say, hey, we can prove this, and here, we'll run an ad for GoDaddy in the background, and maybe GoDaddy's giving them free hosting or free server, but there was no Joe Rogan deals going out there. It was brand new.
That would be nice though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to get a nice check. So, over the years, there always has been that aspect, but, of how do you get funding for something in a lot? I'd say 99.9% of these people are doing it out of their pocket. They love it. It's a way to distribute your thoughts and ideas. And it's still the Wild West with podcasting out there. I was just talking with somebody yesterday, there's no International Podcast Association, and here's the guidelines in terms of how it goes. There are some people who try to do podcast awards and try to accolades and things like that. But, you know, I could go start up an organization like that right now and say, submit me your podcast. And here's what you won the podcast award of the year. But is that like the Oscars and the Grammys? Is it vetted by people that, you know, that are anonymous, that turn in their ballots from all over the world? And, you know, you don't know who's reporting and things. No, but I'm not knocking those organizations, but it's still a very wild, wild west. And there's no monitoring of podcasts. I mean, YouTube can monitor it. Twitch can monitor it. Facebook can monitor what goes on their platforms. But you host a file on a GoDaddy server. There's no algorithms on a GoDaddy server. Mm-hmm. And so you got to look at things like copyright, you know, and the use of music within podcasts, and how many people are actually breaking the law with these podcasts. Or I should say, maybe they don't know, but they're not doing it the right way. And that's another huge thing, that when you try to do this the right way and you do get your licensing, those costs start going up.
I think it's funny that I'd put on I had a couple of guests that were in famous bands, and they wrote the music, you know, they played on the song, the whole 9 yards. I have them on the show, and then I get a notice from YouTube saying this is a copyrighted music. And I literally have the guy who wrote the song and played the song on my show. You know, so far it's worked out okay, but it's annoying.
Yeah, unfortunately, once they sell it off, once they give the rights to the publishing company, they no longer have any control over what they can do with that track anymore. Unless somewhere in their contract it says, yes, we do. But usually the publisher says, nope, we've got this rights and we're the ones that are the distributors of this. You do not have rights to distribution on this anymore. And getting video on demand rights, which is master use and sync license agreements or video sync, is it's almost impossible. There's nowhere to go. And because the process is, it's not like you go to ASCAP or BMI and say, hey, I want to get access to your library for a performance. That's performance rights. That is not video on demand rights. The way you have to go about video on demand rights, it's all individual. So imagine I have a DJ that plays on my show. They play 12 songs in a music set. I have to, before I put that, I can stream it live. That's great. But the moment I put that online, before I put that online, I have to have all those rights in place before it goes online in a video on demand or VOD. And let's say that DJ plays the set and then somebody doesn't get back to me. I can't use it.
Yep.
I can't use it at all. And that becomes, the production goes to garbage. And if I went to go clear them beforehand, it could be months before I hear back from somebody, or they come back and say no. So now you're stuck getting, okay, you can only use these songs from this library or these, and they go, well, that's not how a mix go. They choose from, they got 30,000 songs in their library now to choose from. So it's interesting.
Hence the reason why you have to be creative when you do this kind of stuff. But, you know, just if you want to do it, just start doing it. You learn these things as you're going along. The experience alone it's just, I don't know. I've really, really enjoyed it. Stick with it, because there's going to be times, and believe me, I've had plenty of those where I just want to give up, but then I'll get that comment or something on my videos, and they'll be like, yeah, this was really great. I enjoyed this, and this really helped me, and get motivated again. You're not going to get those all the time, but it's fun. Now, one more thing before we go.
Sure.
You are known as the DJ's DJ. Now tell me about that.
So I work with a number of resident DJs. I've worked with hundreds of DJs, local DJs, international DJs all over the years, and I've never learned how to DJ. I've been in the electronic music industry from just being a participant, an audience member, up until today. To this weekend, I'm going to a show in Portland, Oregon. For 30 years, I like to dance. I like to hang out. I have DJ gear. I have tons of DJ gear for my show. I've never learned how to DJ. And so one time a DJ had to cancel on a show that we were doing. And I said, well, the show must go on. So I have to get up there. And I have to put something on. So I went out to YouTube and I ripped a mix off YouTube. I think it was some 70s disco mix, put it on the flash drive and got up on stage and plugged the drive in and hit play. Then I danced. The crowd didn't know. And so after that, I came back and I decided to make a page on our website, thedjsessions.com. Under our residence page, I listed myself as one of the resident DJs on the site. And my bio is there. I'm gonna see if I can pull this up for you, get the right saying here. Because it's pretty funny. It's kind of a joke. It's not making fun of DJs. It's not making fun of the DJ profession. These people work really hard to curate music and spend a lot of time on doing some really cool stuff. But I decided to come up with this kind of funny bio and kind of just play on it. And so I took the name. My DJ name is the DJ ... Sessions. And so the DJ Sessions is the DJ's DJ. He's not a DJ. He just plays one on live streams. Born into a video world, but never wanting to kill the radio star, the DJ Sessions found a passion for mixing video with one of his other passions, music, at a young age. While never actually spinning a record, putting in a disc, or loading songs onto a flash drive, the DJ Sessions has become a conduit for serving music to the masses. He has spent thousands of hours behind the decks watching how others do the magic of DJing, so it was only natural for him to get into the mix. Quote, pressing play to play other people, pressing play is the biggest honor, and playing other sets music is what I do best, better than anybody. I get to share the sets and the music that make me dance and have a good time with others, and that's worth millions in exposure bucks, something no DJ can live without. When he's not producing the wildly popular Twitch-featured partner DJ show, The DJ Sessions, you can find The DJ Sessions cooking up a storm in the kitchen, being a foodie in the kitchen. Being a foodie is his second favorite passion in the world. He hopes that through cooking and music, he can help others to eat, have fun, and dance. Check out his energetic sets and also the DJs that he features when he plays. You won't be disappointed.
And Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, it was just a play on it, just like, and throw my hat in, because everyone always asks me if I DJ. And I've mixed, I think 3 times in my life. I've had one song, mixed it into another song, and went, okay, cool, I'm done. I leave the work to the professionals. I like doing my work. Let me do my professional work. Let them do their professional work. It isn't the Darran Bruce show, the me show. It's really about the DJs and featuring the DJs and the people that I see making me have a good time dancing on the dance floor, and then wanting to share that with the world in a positive light.
Yeah, I have a leather vest that I wear when I go on my paranormal investigations, and I have a little American flag on it, but I have our logo and everything on the back. And somebody asked me if I was in the Army, and I'm like, I'm in the KISS Army. Does that count? Okay, that's kind of close, right? Oh, but you have the DJ Sessions website. And what about social media?
Just look up the DJ Sessions everywhere out there. If you go to our website, thedjsessions.com, top right corner, all of our social medias are right there. I'm all a big fan about TikTok, but you'll find a lot of food stuff there on TikTok right now, because I get a kick out of making a meal with, I just made breakfast this morning. If you go check out the TikTok, you'll see it's my traditional big breakfast. It's grits, it's 3 eggs, probably about a pound of bacon, and 6 to 8 sausage links. It's a big breakfast. And I kind of take pictures of that being made on the plate, and then I put some music to it. I think that TikTok's just crazy. I mean, I'm into it. I get it. I come from the Facebook, MySpace, into Twitter, into Instagram world. But yeah, the DJ Sessions, that's going to be TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You can get our Facebook off our website. But go to the website. That's where all our content is going to be. I mean, socials are great. But I've learned the trick is, you really want to take it to the next level. Brand yourself, get a domain name, get your episodes and start branding your own website and getting it out there, and eventually make a merch store on the website, start selling some merch, some logos, maybe some NFTs, if you're going to get in that path. But yeah, lots of stuff out there.
Well, Darran, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you coming on, and I encourage everyone to check out the DJ sessions, and I will put those links in the description so people can just click on it and go to your website. Until the next one, everyone, thank you for coming by. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you are a regular, thank you for your support. It's because of y'all that we do what we do. Everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network